Join us on Now We Consume. Take in the knowledge, take in the laughs, indulge in the topics with us. The Now We Consume podcast will take you through the parts of your day you normally dread. Why suffer through the existential crisis of life alone when you can do it with us? And now we consume.
This is not meant to be a conspiracy episode or podcast, but we may cover some topics that dance that line like a toddler dances on their mother's last nerve. This podcast is rated I, for immature audiences only.
If you've ever dreamed of living in a mega city like in the Judge Dredd comics, this is the show for you. Welcome to the Now We Consume podcast. I'm your host, Pip. Here as always with my co-host is Gibbs.
I am internally screaming.
When are you not when I'm around?
Usually it's for fear. Right now it's just because of existence. That's the usual difference right now.
The daily existential crisis of existence continues to grind, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, unfortunately. It sounds more like rip and tear at this point.
The ripping and the tearing. The ripping and the tearing.
Exactly.
Oh, I hope you know that reference. Hedonism 2, The Resort. The ripping and the tearing. Oh, yes. So I hope everybody had a good 4th of July weekend. Hope everybody's coming back with all digits intact and hearing with no extra tinnitus. Freedom rings 24/7 when you're a combat veteran. Fuck yeah.
I've never heard that. I don't know how the hell I've never heard that. That's fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah,
my God.
It was a good weekend. Did you get out and get some sun? You look a little redder than usual. It's not blood pressure related. Well,
it's a bit of both. But no, it was good. Had some fun. Honestly, got away for the weekend and just kind of spent a little bit of time just relaxing. Honestly, just want to get away from the city. That was my big thing. Just wanted to be out in the middle of nowhere, hang out with the girl, and just relax. Enjoy some good food, do a little bit of traveling, and just be at peace for a little bit until I came back here, and then I'm being bullied. So that's a whole different thing.
That's what we do around here.
Exactly. But no, I had a fun time celebrating. How should I say? England taking a big fat L on that one. So thank you guys. I appreciate your participation trophy, but you also get a loser's trophy. So, this is why we don't listen to the opinions of England, because you're losers.
Yeah, I hope England enjoyed that day of work on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Holy fuck nuts. Good God, the thunder. Sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry. That thunder kind of came out of nowhere. It's been storming, so I hope the podcast. I hope I don't lose power tonight, because holy shit.
Oh God. Well,
that'll be a fun one to experiment with. So, tonight's episode, Cities of the Future. We had teased about this in last week's episode, and we've actually mentioned this in a few prior episodes, and we wanted to do a whole episode dedicated to this topic because it's something that we've actually talked about a few times just amongst ourselves. Taking the concept of shrinking down the living space and condensing people into a smaller area, making it efficient, and trying to min-max the space. Mm-hmm. Like I said in the intro, the Judge Dredd comics showed the concept of the megacity. Many years ago, I had a concept of taking warehouses and converting those into smaller versions of the megacities and putting, retail and commercial space in the lower levels and residential space above, because warehouses can get pretty fucking huge and you could get a lot of apartments into that kind of a space. You put solar up on top, recycled water systems, irrigation, you can grow food. I mean, it's not going to be totally self-sufficient, but it would cut down a fair amount on the amount of external input that you would need to run it. And a lot of people, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people that live there could also work there. So again, you're minimizing the outflow of traffic from that that footprint of a building. So you expand on that and you take it to a citywide concept and you start putting multiples of these little miniature cities and buildings all around a city block, a city mile, and expand it. It's what they were trying to do with the line over in, where was that? Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
Yes. Which the line was supposed to be this 100 kilometer or 500 kilometer. It's down to like 5 miles or some bullshit now that they're maybe trying to build in the desert. And it's a failed project.
It's going to be a luxury idea. It's really what that's going to be.
Yes.
It's going to be a little Dubai
town
in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
One of the things that, because we've been discussing this for a while, and we've had our own ideas and other things, there is an inherent problem with the way we built cities. And I think it's because we did not understand the rate of growth and the influx of immigration, everything else that we would have in many of these major cities. Where because these cities are so segmented, meaning designated separate zones for industry, commercial, residential, the inherent problem you always have is everything is so separated that it is difficult to handle logistics, and it always creates an unnecessary amount of traffic because they were never designed really with vehicles in mind up until recently. And even then, look at some of the cities that are designed even more recently. They still suck.
Yeah.
All of them are terrible.
Yeah. The East Coast cities, you can really see that in. Literally anything east of the Mississippi, the traffic is horrendous. And the bigger the city, the more East Coast you get. That's just more prevalent. Cities like New York, Boston, Philadelphia, those cities were not properly configured with modern traffic flows in mind. And they're a nightmare to have to drive around.
And you're talking about they were considered cities back when they had a couple 100,000 people. Now when you have multiple millions that have to get in and out every day, it's a nightmare.
Right.
So I do understand why there's a big movement for these new city concepts. And I understand why there's a lot of people in different groups that are trying to find ways to make it more efficient.
Yeah.
But as you'll see, it's one thing to go from useful ideas to taking away your rights and other options and other things. There's this weird fine line that we're going to be discussing tonight here that I think people are going to need to be aware of. And you could even see it happening in some of your local cities. So some of the stuff that we're talking about, you might be vaguely familiar with.
Yeah. And like this whole concept originally started with the high-rise buildings. They were intended to be, you live here, you work here, or you work within, walking distance. But as populations increased, the living space needed to be more, and the working space in and within walking distance of those buildings needed to be less. So as the car became more popular, the idea of walking to work was less popular. That's why, most people commute now.
You'll see this weird overlap, and you can even look at it. Boston is a really great example for this, because I happen to be near it, so I kind of know. The housing prices in Boston versus outside the city, yes, there were a difference, but you weren't talking 3 or 4 times the price, or even 10 times the price per square foot. You were talking 30 to 50% increase because they were near the city. But back then, you could still afford to work in the city and live in or near the city because that was back before there were massive traffic changes. Now, because of commute times, because the availability for commercial space and industrial space, nowadays in every single metropolis or megacity I can think of, that residential space is at such a premium that now per square foot you're talking 3 times, 5 times, sometimes even 10 times the cost in some areas, which is insane for the same square footage. Not to mention you have to factor in things like parking or being able to even get a car, because for a lot of those cities you still need a vehicle, whereas something like maybe out west, not as much. Like, because I know Boston really well, you can get around without a car, but there's a lot of areas of Boston that you can't necessarily get to, or it's going to be hours. So it's this weird problem of, with a lot of, especially, you're right, East Coast cities, of because of the traffic, it has risen the prices exorbitantly of any residential, whether it be high rises or any property of any sort, condos, renting, anything, to where now that housing has become a far bigger issue than what it even used to be 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to beat the commute. Because now the commute is way longer than just using the poor, public transport that's in the area.
Right. And that's been, falling apart for decades as well. So that's it boggles my mind. And I hate using that word, but it really, noodles my casserole that the remote work concept is as frowned upon as it is. The amount of office jobs that could be done remote, we saw during COVID that works.
I can tell you from someone that I know, the thing that I found out, which was interesting, was so many companies use the write-offs and losses on property in the taxes for the company that it literally they save more money by paying people extra to work in the office and then do the tax write-offs for the building and everything else than they would save by just not having those and paying people less. Which is insane. But if you're a multi-billion-dollar company, like let's just say Intel or some big insurance company like Progressive or Geico or something like that or whatever, any one of those big names you could think of, any one of the top 500s, they have thousands of people. Yeah, exactly. They have thousands of people they hire specifically to figure out what is the best way to save us the most money. And unfortunately, good and bad news, but they can write off a lot on depreciation and losses. So it's one of those things where let's just say if they can write off a few $1 million, if not tens of millions of dollars on property loss, if they can pay you an extra $5,000, $10,000 a year to do it, and there's just 100 people that work there, I hate to say it, but the math works out because they're still keeping a leverageable asset.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. A lot of these companies, they can't leverage their intellectual property for, loans, but they can.
But see, that takes us back to the initial concept. That building space then could become living space.
They would be better off having, and I agree with your assessment 100%, of more multi-use spaces where the idea is it could be half residential, half commercial, and then offer those apartments to people that work in the company. Work out a deal, figure it out. All of a sudden now, there's way less of a demand on public transport, or transport of any kind at all, because you just go down a set of stairs. Like, oh no, a long commute to work. It took me 97 steps. Like, poof, whatever will I do? But I think your idea of the multi-use...
Sorry I was late for work. I tripped down the stairs.
And it's one of these problems that's a little bit more uniquely American because of our cities and because of our lifestyle and everything else that's going on. But it is something that is definitely solvable. It just depends on how we want to solve that. And there's a few different avenues I think we could do. I do think maybe the way we should do it with your multi-use purpose space idea is maybe make it so that you can write off a significant percentage of taxes multiplied by the amount of multi-use space that you're using. So the idea is if you're, let's just say, Intel, and you buy a big building, and you have a third of it be industrial and a third of it be residential, all of a sudden now, hey, maybe you can write off 66% of the taxes on that building. Maybe you incentivize efficiency. Possibly,
but it would have to be occupied and used and not just sitting empty.
Oh, of course. They'd have to be like usage minimums for all of that.
Yeah.
But at least if they relocated some of that, imagine the idea of, let's just say you worked at some company that they had a bunch of boxes. Like you run, because I know this industry, you run like a kitchen company where you rebuild kitchens and everything like that. You do that for restaurants. You have all your inventory down in the basement, down the lower floors, and you have your commercial stuff on the mid floor and your residential up top. All of a sudden now it's like, hey, the people that work here, we have everything in this one building. Everything we need, all of our trucks, all of our everything. And that way people can save money and also be more flexible. Because I also don't think people realize, but like all that commuting time, I think there's a lot of people that'd be willing to split the difference to be at work and be home. Like the amount of people I know that drive an hour to work every day, or at least 45 minutes.
Oh yeah, what's the average commute time now? It's like an hour almost.
It was getting close to an hour last time I looked. Last time I looked it was like 48 or 50 minutes.
Yeah.
But that was like 6 months ago, I think.
And that's every day each way. Yeah. So if you got that kind of time back in your life, I mean, like I have a very good friend who just got that kind of time back in their life because they moved for their job. And now they got back like an hour and a half a day.
Oh.
And like the life change that can give you. It's insane.
You know,
So,
you're talking an extra 50 hours a month.
Yeah.
If it's an hour and a half. Like, imagine that is
a
almost
work week and a day.
Yeah.
And then some, depending on your schedule.
I think there's something that a lot of corporations don't realize, that travel time has become such a nuisance.
Oh, yeah.
And commuting has become such an issue that I know there's a lot of people that would say, hey, I'd be willing to work an extra hour a day if that means I could live above where I work and just go home. Like 5 o'clock, I clock out and I'm home.
Yeah. However, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this a little bit later, but that brings into question the issue of home ownership and renting, leasing from or your living space from the company you work at. Because what happens if the company goes under? What happens if they sell out?
I will quote the World Economic Forum. Our eventual future
own nothing and be happy about it.
Yep, that is the eventual future we are moving towards.
I do not want.
I don't want it either, but I think they are definitely pushing, and I say they, meaning, unfortunately, some of the wealthy billionaires that are all interconnected, that they foresee a future for the world on their terms.
The shadowy cabal that secretly tries to run the world.
Yes.
Their heads are shaped like Doritos.
Probably. You never know at this point. So the Bohemian Grove types, should I say.
Yes.
But there was a famous video about some of the guys from the World Economic Forum saying that, in the future, the city of 2035, 2040, the average person will own nothing. They'll be happy. They will rent everything. Everything will be a subscription. Everything will be a rental. You will never gain a leverageable asset. And this is where I think, unfortunately, we are heading at some point. We're going to talk more about like the different options with some of the city stuff, but this I did want to cover really quick. I think there's a lot of cities who are going the direction of there's no way to buy real estate. There's no way to buy commercial property. Everything you will have. Eventually, there are some cities now where you can even own a car, or they don't want you to own a car.
Do you think that's been the plan with the retail housing market? Drive the prices up so high that no one has the option to buy, so they just have to rent or lease them from these companies. Maybe that's why these companies have been buying these houses up at the rate they have been. Dude, they don't want you to buy them. They want to buy them so you can rent them from them.
They will take the short-term loss to have the long-term gain of owning all of the rentable property. Because here becomes the problem down the road. What happens is, let's just say BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, all of them. What if they own 20% of all the houses in an area? Well, congratulations, they can now set the rental price. They can control who gets mortgages, because they're also the banks that you're pulling the money from. People don't understand. The same people you're trying to borrow money to buy a house to then rent it out, they're the same people getting the money from and trying to out rent. They're always going to beat you. Why? Because, their loans have 0%. You're always going to have to charge more on the rent than they will.
And
you
they
will
also
never
own
get ahead.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. They might even own, they might even, in the case of some towns, they might even give the town a bunch of money so they get special privileges for their land, so they don't have to pay taxes or doing other stuff. So I've seen it happen. It's very unfortunate, but I do think it is part of the long-term plan, is if Americans can't own their own land, you cannot retire. You can't, there is no future. You do not have a leverageable asset. Because think about it, any car that you buy now, they all depreciate in value. Everything's a depreciating asset.
The minute you drive off the lot, you lose 15%.
Yeah. And for most Americans, that's going to become their big purchase. It's like, I've been saying this for a while. Do you know in Sweden, less than half of anybody in Sweden owns their own house?
Wow.
Yes. The majority rent. Now, I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but what I'm saying is in that country, they also de-incentivize having cars. They have a 100% tax on vehicles.
100% tax?
Last time I looked, it was about 100% tax. So the idea for them is you don't need a car. We have public transport. But if you want it, you got to pay extra. They do not incentivize you owning a home. But if you want it, you're going to have to pony up and pay extra. I think it's going to be the case of they're going to look at the idea of homeownership as a luxury. They're going to look at the idea of you owning your own space, even commercially, if you're a restaurant or any other business. that's a luxury. That's not necessarily a right or not necessarily something that should be afforded to you. So it's going to be crazy because how do you start a business? Most people, what do? They leverage their house as an asset. If you can't leverage a house, you can't start a business. And especially all the rules and regulations, it's everything is stacked against you. If you cannot gain equity in a house, you can't do anything.
That's insane.
So that's just my little 2 cents. But yes, so on to smart cities, or really the future of cities. There have been a lot of cases, or a lot of not cases, I would say, but there have been a lot of discussions about politicians trying to make plans for future cities, smart cities. The idea of establishing it from the ground up to try and make it, as you're talking about, more efficient, to be way less wasteful, to
which,
make it
okay, without sounding like a tree hugger, that is a smart thing to do.
Oh, no, I agree 100%.
Min-max and maximize your use of resources in both planning, designing, building, constructing, and use of space. That's the smartest way to go about it. The most cost-effective way to go about it. Absolutely.
That's what they should do for I think almost any living space, to be honest with you, because of the premium that we have for real estate and for space. We really should be focusing on efficiency for a while, especially when you have a lot of people, I think now with the housing market, these houses are going to become generational houses. I think we're going to be going a lot of the way kind of like Europe and Japan, where you see several generations living in the same house for extended periods of time. So we need to start thinking about, hey, maybe these houses are going to be made to last several hundred years. Maybe they need to be built to be serviced, to be repaired. Not just a house that you throw up and then 50 years down the road when it looks like a piece of shit, you bulldoze it and rebuild it. You can no longer just buy a house in a Sears catalog. So, especially all the regulations, everything else you have to go through, and really the amount of knowledge you have to have nowadays. It's not like how it used to be, where you just kind of, assemble a house together, hook up some plumbing, plug in the electrical, and call it a day. Now it is way, way, way more complex and skilled. So, because of that, we should be looking to extend the useful life of these houses, and we're not. That's the other problem, is we still, in America, it's weird. We have really high standards for some stuff, but then, like, our foundations are shit. Our roofs are crap. They're leaking everywhere.
And they're the most important parts of the fucking house. The literal top and bottom that the house depends on.
Yep. You know what's crazy? I like in England, they still use slate. And you know what's crazy?
Slate is awesome.
Some of the places warranty them for like 50 years. Some places even 100. In America, you try to hire a roofing company now, they're like, 5 years. Maybe 10. And half the people working on them don't know what the fuck they're doing anyway. Like, I hate to say that, but like...
No, well, that goes back to the whole education episode.
And what's nuts is it seems like other countries have found ways of using natural resources to make their homes not only well insulated but also waterproof. Like, have you ever seen the thatched homes in England? Dude, they just have to redo them every 20, 30 years. But the stuff grows. You're using plants to do the roof of the house, and it works. Like, how the hell? We have all this land to grow, all the food and crops and everything else, and we can't just, like, do that? Are you kidding me? No. It's insane.
Yeah.
Or at least have it as an option. I guess that's my big thing. Or also, like...
we have a lot of... We have a lot of new construction techniques that have been proven in the field. They need to be more available. Things like 3D printing of houses. I really want to see that become more available. Even if it's not a fully 3D printed house. Do parts of the interior as a 3D printed portion. And then do the exterior as, or vice versa. 3D print the exterior and build the interior normal. I mean, start combining this shit.
There's got to be a way that you can use 3D printing in a way in which you can put all the channels, all the raceways, all the everything for all of your electrical and plumbing.
They do that.
And have it so... But that's not like mainstream. That should be something that's already like literally pre-done. so that everything you do has its own little block, its own little area. That way it's easy to service it. It's easy to get to it. You also know where it is. You just follow, hey, look, the blue, 3D printed block holds the plumbing line in it for the main water line. So all you gotta do is follow that, and that's where that goes. And hey, look, here's the main raceway for all the electrical for the second floor or first floor or whatever. And then you look inside, and all the wires have their own neat little notch, and they're all color coded, and it's labeled and everything. If you pre-make this stuff, it makes it so it's really simple, because our biggest problem in America is servicing or repairing homes. Because nothing, they say it's standardized, but let's be real. Every house is their own. Granted, I'm going to be biased on this topic, because I have one of the worst situations I have to deal with this house. But that being said, like, how have we not figured out how to do this more efficiently by now? There should be at least something that's relatively simple. And I agree with you. If you can do a full 3D printed house, or just even the room design, that'd be awesome. Because you already know you have the little pop out things. So you put the the electrical receptacles here and there. You have the molding there. You have this and that. You can even have built-in storage and walls and everything. You just pop out or move. Like, it makes it so those tolerances can be very simple.
Two things. I'm just going to kind of like brain shit this out. Boxable and the D&D snap together tiles. Why not do something like that, where you've got whole rooms that are just like pre-done, that are just ordered as the house is designed? Like, okay, I want these modules with these two modules and this other giant module. And that's what's ordered and brought to site and put together. Everything is pre-made at the factory, because Boxable makes those whole houses, and that's what's deployed. And then it's just assembled on site. It'd be more like a mobile home. It'd be more like a pre-built home that's just, erected and raised on the site, and then you put a roof on it, on a foundation. We have the fucking technology to do that shit. Why are we not? Oh, let me guess. Codes and money. Because someone can't design the permit process to be profitable.
And that's one of my biggest issues, I think, is one, the permitting process is different in almost every county, almost every town, every city.
Yeah.
They have to stick their nose in it for whatever reason. Number two, there needs to be a focus on the ease of maintenance and the ease of repair. Because one of the other problems we see is a lot of the stuff in our houses are built to basically, it's for the life cycle of whatever it is, and then it's done. And the problem is, for a lot of things, you have to rip up entire floors to redo plumbing, to rip out all the walls to redo electrical, or God forbid there's an insulation problem you have to redo. There's got to be a way. And I do feel like with 3D printing technology, that is one of the options, as well as being able to prefab and pre-make things at a point to where it should just be able to be plug and play, or at least that as an option. And I know there's a couple of companies like Boxable you mentioned. There's a few other ones as well that are kind of mobile home kind of companies that they do make, things that kind of snap together. But it's the issue of the engineers not making stuff accessible. Like, I don't understand. And this is something that I actually spoke to a friend of mine who was an architect. He's no longer an architect, but about designing a house to where everything can be easily accessible. And it's not actually that crazy to do. Sure, you have to make a couple of considerations, like you have to sacrifice a room for like an electrical closet, and you have to run a chaseway through certain areas and the plumbing a certain way. But if you do it right, all of a sudden you can design a house where everything is accessible, and it makes it far safer. Because there's nothing that's hiding behind walls or something to where a mouse can get into something and a house catches fire. I have a buddy of mine, he recently lost, he had like an investment property, and he lost it due to an animal getting in the house and they weren't home, and the house caught fire. They caught it on camera and everything. And it's because it was an old house that was built in the late 1890s. Wow. It's just, there was nothing you could do. So I know we're kind of just throwing out general, like, oh, you should just do this, but come on. It's got to be a solvable problem at this point, especially when it comes to, we think about like big sky rises and stuff like that, with larger residential buildings. There's no way you can't make that to something to where at least everything plug and play, easy peasy, all done. That way it's consistent. That way you know how it operates. But anyways.
It's a lot of it comes down to regulation, which of course it always does. design, layout, forethought, pre-planning. I mean, again, it's 2025. We have the technology. Why are we not doing this? There's really no good excuse as to why we're not, outside of just we lack the will. So
a lot of it's profit based too.
Yeah.
The contractor can't make any profit in adding the stuff on. Why would they do it? And that's the problem.
Yeah. But aside from the manufacturing of the buildings, we have to also think about the infrastructure of the roadways. So we could drop some of these onto existing roadways, putting in new roadways, but not just the roads, but the sewer systems too. All the waste management, all the trash and stuff. I mean, yeah, in the future, like Futurama, everything is recycled. You know, food gets recycled. Aluminum cans get recycled into robots, and robots get recycled into aluminum cans. That's the, you know, ultimate dream. But that kind of reminds me of the Japanese invented the poop steaks. You know, do we have to go down that line? Because we also
I'm
have
sorry.
to
Hold
work.
on. The fuck are you talking about? A poop steak? Hold on.
You don't remember the Japanese poop steaks?
No. You need to stop what you're doing right now and explain this to me, because I'm very concerned. What the fuck do you mean is a poop steak?
Yeah, the Japanese made an actual steak out of poop.
Why?
Because they could. Again, this is the Ian Malcolm philosophy. They were too busy trying to figure out if they could. They never stopped to think whether or not they should. Japan has been hit and faced with issues pertaining to food and food production for years because of their population.
But who the fuck are Japan? I know the Japanese are into some weird shit, but who the fuck is Japan? But who the hell in Japan has gone to a restaurant going, "Hello, I'd like a poop steak." No, nobody. Nobody. No. If they have, they should be ashamed of themselves.
They
no.
They literally took human waste, filtered it, cleaned it, reconstituted it, and more or less grew it into a steak type product. I can and will link the articles.
I really hope you don't. I don't want to.
But you know that kind of calls into memory. It's a situation where if they actually do the megacity concept, 3D printed food, lab grown food. Remember the cow from Upload.
It's lab grown food. I'm not against if it nutritionally makes sense.
Yes.
The problem
also texturally.
Yeah, like again, there are some things I think that you can make a viable and acceptable substitute. However, it's got to actually not have the downsides of fucking killing you over time.
Right.
And it seems like anything artificial that has come out of the lab, after a while,
I mean, maybe
it's gonna kill you.
Market, you know.
No, it's all a conspiracy. No. So that's one of my. I guess it's my concern. Is like, if there comes a day where we can 3D print literally using, like, you know, a protein molecule type of thing, you could build it basically like a replicator from Star Trek. That's a different story. But man, lab grown meat for some reason, I feel like there's no way you're gonna get the nutrients that we need in something like that. There's no way.
Well, so they are experimenting with lab grown meat that's essentially just cultured tissue from donor tissue, where the tissue is just grown on a scaffold, and it's just, it propagates, and that's all that it does. It's the tissue that grows just like it would in the body. It just propagates on a scaffold type structure. It grows the exact same way that it would in the body, just in a lab. It's not in a body, it's in a contraption that mimics the body's conditions. Okay. So I'm kind of on the fence about it because I don't trust some of this stuff.
Like, would I try it? Yes.
I'd absolutely try it.
Would I replace meat with it? No. But like, I
still might eat a human before I eat some of this lab grown shit. I don't know.
You're like 3 for 3 with pro cannibalism. I'm a little concerned with you. I really
don't shame.
I really feel like you'd be the first guy on the ship. That's like, the ship's going down. Oh no! And you have a steak and a knife and a fork in each hand. Everyone's like, dude, we're in the Titanic. We got a pinhole. You're like, oh no! Whatever will I do? As you're like half deep into a thigh, like, just one at a time, one excuse. What do you know? Oh no!
Meat's back on the menu, boys.
Just Jesus Christ!
Oh.
But no, like some of the lab grown stuff, I'd be okay with trying. But just, I think maybe it's because of all the stuff medically lately. But I would want longer time periods to study and figure out what's going on with this before we just hop on the train of, yep, we're switch everything to lab grown. Because I think we all know here that the minute the government's like, oh, we can just grow our meat. Well, we're just.
By the way, I want to put in a little asterisk here. There's a guy. I'm not going to say his actual name, but it sounds an awful lot like Gil Bates, who's heavily invested into lab-grown meat.
And he also bought up a ton of farmland.
Yeah, that too,
It's almost like he wants the real meat for the elites and us to have the lab-grown meat.
He wants us to eat bugs. And I've already flat said, I will not eat bugs. I will eat a human before I eat bugs. So there's 4 for 4, Or just a recounted for one of the 3s.
Fair enough.
but that push, back on the transportation. Go ahead. Sorry.
But this is all tied into that push for efficiency. Because if you could make lab-grown meat and all this other stuff, you wouldn't need farmland for cities. They'd be able to grow that in the city, which I think for a lot of reasons that would actually help. If you were able to, in cities, be able to grow your own meat with the lab-grown stuff, then make it less dependent on urban areas. Rural areas. So
I think the lab-grown meat needs to be pushed harder for the space programs too.
Or hear me out. Let California ban real meat. Let them test it out, and we'll see how they are in 10 or 15 years.
Well, if California gets their way, they're going to leave the country anyways. So,
well,
that's a discussion for another podcast episode.
You know what? All I can say is, I believe Sun Tzu said, "Don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake."
Yep.
So I will let them absolutely set you out to pasture. We're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
The last thing I'll say on that is I think it should just be SoCal, like the southern half of California, because like the northern half is fine.
Let them vote by county.
They're all normal people.
Let them vote by county.
Yeah, it's the southern half that is all psychotic and out of their minds. But anyways, back onto the transportation stuff.
Yes.
Once you have a new city laid out, if you ever played anything like SimCity or City Skylines, transportation is a big issue. You're not going to have private cars going everywhere. You're going to have efficient bus lines and e-bikes and robo-taxis going everywhere. So that's going to be one nicety, is it's all going to be on just like loops. You could possibly even have sky trams, hover taxis, drone transports, those are actually coming out now. So that's another thing that could be taken into consideration is the lack of roads that would be needed thanks to the air transport industries that are coming online.
Well, it's something that if designed correctly, the idea is that you would be able to take public transport and be able to get somewhere efficiently, but also cost efficiently as well.
Yeah.
That way, at least a lot of taxes would cover public transport. I think it was in Boston. It was either in Boston, I believe, that they were going to make public transport either free for a period of time or even possibly going forward in the future. I don't know if that's going to be a permanent thing because the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, was kind of a little all over the place. So we'll see how that goes. But I know there's several places around here. Yeah, I know. We'll save that for another episode. But I know there's several places around Massachusetts where they are now basically doing free public transport.
Yeah.
To try to make that work.
That's a good thing because a lot of people rely on that.
Yeah, and also for a lot of people, like if you're already making minimum wage at a job in a city where you can't afford shit, having to pay $2 or $3 every fucking bus ride is ridiculous after a while.
It adds up quick. That's several dollars a day and a lot of dollars a week and a lot more dollars a month. So yeah, that adds up, and that's going to help out a lot of people that need it.
But if you design these cities in a way where, you know, like you're talking about, where you can use bikes, you can walk, use public transport, and with the mixed use buildings, you could theoretically, I know one of the other city designs that we were talking about was the idea of the 15-minute city. The idea was that you can get to anything you need within like 10 or 15 minutes. That you could walk to any grocery store, any sort of outlet for commercial centers, transportation hubs, industry hubs, as well as obviously a residential center. And everything's within a 15-minute equidistant kind of walk with these multi-use buildings. And I do feel like that's something where that's probably a good idea, because I think everybody, honestly, a lot of Americans would be way healthier if we did have a 15-minute walk to work.
Yeah.
Because we don't walk. We're Americans.
They essentially have to take the perfect, air quote, layout, copy and paste it just right down the line.
Yes.
Because that's all that you can do. It has to be, this is the perfect layout. Do not change it. Copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. That's the only way it's going to work. So.
And that way, I think for most people, there's a lot of people that would work somewhere local, even if they made a little less, just to be able to walk 10 or 15 minutes to work and then back.
Especially with the younger generations coming up. They've got that mindset where they're going to be coming out of school, trying to start their lives. They don't have anything of their own. They don't have that they're potted plants. They can be transported more easily, and they can just kind of be put into that environment to grow and thrive easier than established folks like us.
And it also makes it easier for them to get a start, because then they don't have to buy these other things and have to afford
They
them.
don't have the overhead.
Yeah. That's one of the bigger problems you have is nowadays with a lot of cities, you have that weird problem of you almost have to have a vehicle, but you can't really afford to have a vehicle. You can't afford to park it anywhere. You have to pay for the extra parking, and because you're in a city, your insurance is much higher. So it's this weird thing where like, wow, I'm just losing $1,000 a month just to have a vehicle that I use like twice a month. It doesn't make any sense. Whereas for a city design like that, you could get by perfectly fine and not have a vehicle. And because so few people would be driving, public transport will work. And if you want to have a car, there'd be spots available. It'd be okay to drive. I thought it was amazing. My girlfriend and I went up to Portland, up to Maine, over the 4th. And it's a small city. Give you an idea, it's a 15-minute drive from one side to the other, like 15, 20 minutes. Oh, it's quick. It's small. But dude, being in a city where like there's an abundant amount of space, we drove in and out during the 4th of July, during the highest traffic points, and it was like maybe 10 minutes of traffic. When it wasn't during the 4th of July, there was no traffic. You can get anywhere. You could. I cannot believe, maybe it's because I've been near Boston all my life and like New York City and stuff. The idea of just wanting to go into a city and just getting there is amazing. Because I'm used to the idea of like you have to plan. Like you don't understand. If you try to go into Boston at the wrong time, it could be a half hour, it could be 3.
Oh, gross.
Like if you don't leave Boston by 1 o'clock, you're not getting home until 4. Like I'm sorry, you're just fucked. Like there's no way around it. God forbid there's an accident. There's no way around. Whereas with a city like that, it was like, what do you mean I could just like get in my car and go? And you can go somewhere and you can find a parking spot. You can park. So and there's so many cities where you just can't. It's like, congratulations, good luck, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that's insane.
I don't recommend people to go to Boston. It's fun to visit, but don't move there.
Yeah. Oh God, why would you?
Oh, trust me. Trust me. Nobody in Boston's happy. I will tell you that as someone that's been there. No, everyone's unhappy.
Yeah.
But it's because it's the opposite of an efficient city.
Yeah. One other point of efficiency. We were talking about the whole food thing. You can promote urban agriculture, community gardens. Like I said, the gardens on the roof of the building itself. We mentioned the 3D printed food, the lab grown food. But you can also encourage the one thing I would have the most trouble with, the sustainable diet. But, that brings us back to the Soylent Green type of thing. So, They
should definitely incentivize with all the wasted space in cities to have greenhouses on the top of every building, because why not? And if you already have the solar panels on top there anyway, you can help deal with some of the energy inefficiencies, as well as you have that wasted space. Like if you go into any of these major cities, every single one of those skyscrapers on top of it has nothing.
Well,
Just
we've
open empty
also
space.
now got clear solar panels.
Yeah.
So windows should be getting replaced.
You know,
Like-
that's actually the biggest thermal loss and the biggest issue with modern cities
Uh-huh.
is the fact that we made everything out of glass, which is not that great thermally, and the buildings heat up and they do not keep cool. So therefore we spend a shit ton of money on air conditioning.
Something like 40% of our electric use is on HVAC. And then when you add in like drying clothes, it's like 60%.
Yeah. And then also,
It's ridiculous.
all those buildings leave their lights on every night. I'll never understand that.
Because, safety.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I think it's insane. It's so wasteful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're a wasteful species, but
Well, you're not wrong.
yeah. So there's already a lot of data that backs up a lot of these ideas and plans. A lot of different countries are trying to implement micro experiments to kind of get this off the ground. But like we said, private ownership is one of the bigger things that's kind of impeding things, because we are a country that is focused and obsessed with private ownership. Giving those reins away is a very difficult concept for the majority of us to get to just be comfortable with. Trying to conduct the business of a whole city with nobody except the government or some like overarching entity owning like everything there would be a very alien concept for the majority of Americans to acquiesce to. I used a big word, Gibbs. So trying to figure it in as a what's called a CLT, the CLIT, Community Land Trust. A nonprofit organization would own the land in perpetuity, while individuals and entities can own the buildings on that land through long-term leases. That way, it's not some big government entity that owns it. People can actually have a piece of ownership of what they're driving to achieve. And it separates the costs out of the land from the cost of the structure, so that the businesses have a little bit less overhead and they can actually buy and sell the properties like normal, but it kind of caps the value of the property so that there's not this stepped inflation, and we're right back to where we are now.
Exactly. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah. There's limited equity cooperatives. Residents would purchase a share in a cooperative that owns the entire property, like an apartment building or the mega city manufactured home community like we talked about. The members would have the right to occupy the unit and vote on co-op matters. The resale prices of the shares would be typically what you would buy when you sell out. That way the units stay there and they're just kind of like the benefit of having the shares. So that's something else that can be done. And that's already on paper. The leasehold systems.
You can get around taxes with that too.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's one of the big things that I kind of want to drive home in a few of these different models you're talking about. Is it's a way of owning something without actually owning it in terms of liability. Yeah. So because the original, whether it be the co-op or the land trust model, they still retain the ownership of it. So theoretically, you wouldn't have to pay a property tax. Granted, you would have to pay for that in terms of like the membership. But because it's
but it would be
covered
people, by that. Right.
Exactly. But it would be way more efficient because you're splitting it up by that many people. And as you know, with property taxes, the bigger the building, and if you're doing like any sort of residential kind of thing, it becomes less and less per person per that share. Yep. So it becomes more efficient. So you could actually make a living situation where it's far more cost effective for people. And because they can vote, they could do things, they can make decisions and help contribute to that. Whereas for a lot of places, really you rent it out and you have no fucking say. And I'm not saying you should, but at least with this, you have some skin in the game without having the tax liability.
Yeah. Or the repair costs and whatnot. So, which warranty programs and whatnot, repair contracts could all be figured into that shit. There's leasehold systems, which are similar to CLTs, but potentially implemented on a broader scale, where the government or a public entity would retain ownership of the land and lease it out for development and use. This would allow the public entity to control the land use, enforce sustainable building standards, and potentially capture land value increments for public benefit. That one is essentially what is in play right now. Mm-hmm. I think it would allow the most access for the lowest cost, but would eventually, 30 to 50 years out, we'd be right back to where we are now.
Yeah.
You've got the public-private partnerships with restrictions, more or less the exact same thing, but you're able to kind of cap some of the things that can and cannot go in there. Land can be leased or sold to private developers. Building standards, affordability, the types of businesses allowed. I don't know that I would be okay with that.
No.
And then you've got the famous social housing models. This is a fun one. Cities can prioritize a large percentage of housing as social housing, owned and managed by public or nonprofit entities, offered at affordable rates based on income. When has that ever fucking worked?
It doesn't. Because
exactly.
Eventually, what ends up happening is because they're public owned, that land and the buildings can't really be sold, and nobody wants to be responsible for putting money into fixing them or repairing them. And because the people living there don't own them, they have absolutely no onus to actually take care of the place.
Uh-huh.
So if you want to see what I'm talking about, refer to Section 8 housing, is basically what I'm getting at.
That's exactly what that is.
There's a reason why there was an epidemic with Section 8 people pulling copper out of the walls and tearing apart the place and doing stuff. And in the state that I'm from, you can't even kick them out without a 6-month notice. So it's one of those things where if they tear apart everything, that happened to a family member of mine. She rented it out to someone, and because that person had a kid, it was, well, you got to give them their 6 months. It's like, yeah, but they literally tore the walls out. And the response was, well, they have a kid. You got to it's per the law. You got to give them their due diligence. You got to give them their time. And it's more of a problem of the laws that are on the books rather than Section 8 in and of itself or the social housing, because if there were guarantees or standards saying, hey, you got to work this many hours and you got to take care of this place, and there were inspections, that would be a different story. And I'm sure there is a way to make social housing work. So I'm sure there are some people that maybe they can only work 20 hours a week or 50 hours a month or whatever it is. Or maybe they can only do certain things, or they're disabled or this or that, or they're elderly and just shit happen in life, or they don't have other options. I feel like for those people, that's something that should be available. But for people that are able-bodied and able to do stuff and able to work and are educated, that's where I have an issue with this. If you're able to actually do something and contribute, you shouldn't be in something like social housing. But unfortunately, that's how it always gets abused, because there's really no system that efficiently keeps people out of it. So, because they always say it's discrimination. So that's always the issue. So it just kind of, it's that revolving door where it could happen, it could work, but nobody really wants to put their foot down and say, I'm sorry, you're not approved.
No, it's sad because the social housing stuff like Section 8, you always have more bad apples than good that ruin it for everybody. And there are people who genuinely just need a leg up and a break for that point in their life. And it's sad because they always end up there with the shitheads trying to just take advantage of things. I hate that. But so we can talk all day about the idea of building these cities from scratch and making multi-use buildings and everything, but where the hell are you going to put them? You got to have land. So last episode, we talked about the use of federal lands in a couple different ways. Excuse me. But we had talked about BlackRock potentially buying some of the federal lands to be used as development, but that was still kind of in the air as to whether that was true or not. I still have not found anything as to like hard rock proof that there is any allowance for them to do that. But on the assumption that either them or other investment companies will be allowed to purchase federal lands, or just federal land being opened up to any entity to build on. You've got BLM that manages a lot of land, which I know we've seen how BLM likes to interact with the people out west when it comes to land issues. Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife, and the national parks, which the national parks, there are a lot of very special places out west that need to be protected. And I want to put that out there first. But I think it's worth kind of saying, okay, maybe some of these places are just a little bit too big and they don't need 50,000 acres. You know, the main park is, you know, this 30,000 right here. So let's maybe relook at some of these areas. Look at it. I'm not saying open it up 100%, just kind of look things over is all I'm saying.
Well, I guess the way to look at it is this, and this is something pretty simple. Cities generate a lot of heat. So why not look at areas of the country that are usually very cold, that are very tundra?
Underground.
Well,
let's go back underground.
Well, that's another point I was going to make, but what I'm getting at is there places like out in the middle of Montana, North Dakota, anywhere along like that Canadian border, where we've even looked at properties up there where like there's just nothing for hundreds of miles.
Well, there are reasons, Gibbs, because it gets cold and we don't like the cold.
But we are really good at making a cold place a warm place. We are very good at insulating things. So here is my thought.
I'm very good at insulating myself, as you can see.
Yeah, I'm too good at it. That's my problem. I went a little too ham with that. I said, fuck being cold, and now I'm just sweating all the time. It's not recommended. Don't get fat, kids. It's not worth it.
No.
But what I'm getting at is if we start saying, hey, we have all this land up in the north that there really isn't much of an ecological population. There's not really many animals or much going on. It's almost like a tundra. Why don't we start saying, hey, if we need more land, let's build there first. Don't build in areas where like we have beautiful forests and parks and all these nature and everything else going on. Let that be so we have it in the future for future generations to enjoy. Because I dislike the idea of us selling that land and saying, well, we need the space when we have entire towns and cities in this country that are abandoned. Then we have already plots of land that are not federal land in terms of like conservation land that are just empty. There are towns and cities in the U.S. with a population of 0. Why don't we start there? They're already connected to roadways. They're already connected to stuff. It's very simple. Find some of those that are near enough to highways to be connected and start designing these cities from day one. Mm-hmm. I really, until we use up all that land, I don't think we should be selling any of the federal land because I do not trust for a second
I agree with you.
Average Americans will get their hands on that land. It will all go to some mega corporation that one of these politicians are in bed with, and then all of a sudden one day you're going to say, hey, wow, 10% of Utah just got bought by BlackRock, and it's a gold mine. Or it's a lithium mine. They're just going to strip everything.
That's rare metal mining is the number one concern that most people have with the opening of a lot of the BLM stuff. Bureau of Land Management.
Yes.
I hate I have to clarify that. Jesus.
I know. Yes. But I think you see what I'm saying, though, is let's go that route first. And I don't know why as well we haven't already tried to restart some of these old towns and cities anyway that are dying. Yeah. The infrastructure's already there. Sure, it needs updating, but that's sure as shit going to be cheaper.
There's a guy on YouTube that bought an old silver mining town. and he's been like kind of going around and just like fixing up the buildings there. It's amazing.
See, I wish I could develop like a family homestead like that or family compound. Yeah. That's my dream.
Awesome.
But if they could do this in a way where you build an airport out in the middle of nowhere, you build some infrastructure, you build some things, you eventually will get enough people moving there because all you have to do is create jobs. That's your number one thing. People don't move to somewhere where there are no jobs.
Yes. So, or you make it with really good internet, and then you have a remote job hub.
Which would be great as well, especially if you have tax benefits and everything else. There are ways to do this. If the politicians stop being old curmudgeon pain in my ass and actually fucking got with the times, people would actually move there and do these things. But no. Instead, all of our politicians are 85 years old and they don't know what the internet is. So they'll never understand. It's not until my generation gets into politics a little more heavily. Which is going to be fucking terrifying, by the way. Or especially if Gen Z gets into politics, like hardcore, because they're gonna. Whew.
Right.
But no,
Gen Z is going to run the country one day. That's a terrifying thought.
There's going to be a Gen Z president.
Ugh. Maybe we'll get lucky and they'll just skip Gen Z and go straight to Gen Alpha, which is even more scary.
Dude, I can't imagine a president that always has an iPad in front of his face. Or the president's speech is going to be, yo, what's up, fam? Thank you for the inaug. I really appreciate it. Like, it's going to be so cringe. It's going to be the most ridiculous thing.
This speech will be ultra sus and skibbity.
Dude, it's going to be a whole fucking... You know what's going to happen is we are going to look at that like we currently look at Shakespeare. We're in the weird middle group to where we do speak mostly regular English. Mm-hmm. Previously... it sounds weird to us, and then like 50 years in the future, it's going to sound weird. We're going to be this weird anomaly where eventually they're going to say, well, then there was a time for Middle English, and discusses from the late 1850s until Think about this. Eventually, we're going to be in a history book someday.
It's the fucking Idiocracy timeline.
Yes, this is.
Oh my god!
What do you do here? We knew this. We knew this was happening.
No, but it really is.
Yes. It's a prophecy.
Okay, y'all, listen. If you have not watched Idiocracy before, or if you have not seen it recently, do that this weekend, okay? Sit down and watch Idiocracy and take some fucking notes, because it's fucking happening.
Welcome to Costco. We love you. It is a movie that I think that the viewers at home got to understand that, like, this has been inevitable, but it's going to get way worse. It's going to get way worse than that.
I want to get a message to the scientists at CERN.
Oh, good luck.
Please turn the fucking machine off. I don't like this timeline, okay?
Oh, Jesus. See, no. It's because of the Harambe thing. It has nothing to do with CERN. We got put on a weird timeline ever since that.
They turned on the machine, Harambe died, and now we're on that fucked up timeline.
Yeah. Dude,
anyways.
I don't know. The world's weird. None of this makes sense.
No.
If multiverse theory is true, we're in one of the weird ones.
We're definitely in one of the weird ones.
We're in one of the... Wow, I didn't think it would go that way.
Ones.
Yeah, but hey.
So as far as land acquisition goes, there is another method that they can that we can go about. We can destroy what's already there and just rebuild over top of it. Like aliens destroying a major city and us building upon the ruins like they did in Futurama. We can use giant space lasers to set big cities on fire, like in Maui and Los Angeles. That has unfortunately not been confirmed, sadly.
Wait a minute. Are you suggesting that in these other places they set fires and purposely only burn down certain buildings to therefore gain ownership of and then build whatever they want?
I said nothing of the sort. You did.
How dare you?
How dare you?
Honestly, though, I still think that was a setup. I'm sorry. I know that's conspiracy theory.
Pip, of the Now We Consume podcast, personally feel both of those cities were 100% setups. However, as much clickbait, rage bait, and bullshit video stuff is out there, I cannot find undeniable proof that that was what happened.
It just seems like
I just can't. The AI stuff is too good. And we've talked about this. And I know that we have had episodes, like 3 of them now, on AI bullshit. We're probably going to have to fucking do another one because of all the other shit that's going on with AI stuff. And it's freaking me the fuck out.
Oh,
and I sound like a goddamn nut job when I talk about this stuff. But holy shit, it's really fucking scary because it just makes sense.
Yeah, but here's the thing you don't have to worry about. Eventually the AI will know you so well that it will just make the world make sense for you. Eventually you won't be able to distinguish what reality is. It'll be what you think it is. So you'll always be right. Congratulations.
I don't like that comment, Gibbs.
It's the world you always thought it would be. It's just not the one you wanted.
I do not want the penile implant shoving into my head every day like they showed in The Matrix, okay?
Well,
I do not want that implant.
Well, you're assuming you get to consent to that. Wait until the day when the Starlink or fucking whatever, the Starlink, the NanoLink, the brain thing, whatever, it's going to be deemed mandatory. Yeah, Neuralink.
Yeah.
Wait until the day, because I will tell you this right now. I know for a fact where this is going to go. They're going to start requiring that for people that are felons at some point. It's good. I'm telling you right now. From
Demolition Man, but with Neuralink.
Yep.
Oh
yeah.
Oh, you touched my ta-la-la.
You've been convicted of a thought crime. How guilty do you plead? How guilty do you plead?
Gibbs.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Oh,
think about this. We're already figuring out how the brain thinks, but they're using the brain to be able to control different prosthetics. So they understand now what the command is to like move
different
your
prophylactics.
Arm. Prosthetics, not prophylactics. That sounds like a you problem. but
they could probably do those too.
They could. But think about it. If we can already, as of now, on an inexpensive scale, be able to build prosthetics that your brain can control, just saying open the hand, close the hand, move the finger, move the arm. If we've already figured that out, give AI a few years with that information, you ain't safe.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, and for anybody that has taken the time to find the Discord, and I see those numbers, slackers. I posted in there that there's a company by the name of Anduril Industries. Feel free to look them up. They make drones for the military. They just signed a contract with ChatGPT. They're going to have access to their AI software. Did no one watch the Terminator movies? Or am I the only one? Because holy shit, they're building a plant like an hour away from me.
Even better.
Ohio is going to be the reason that the apocalypse happens. People were right.
I don't like any of this. I like how we're getting subsidized Terminator is what we're getting at this point. It wasn't even just a company building it. It's going to be government subsidized Terminator.
Yeah, it's going to be full on Skynet. They're building Skynet.
Yes.
I hate sounding like a fucking crackpot.
Well,
but I see the connections. It's not hard to fucking make the red strings on the corkboard. It's like A connects to B, connects to C, and holy shit, we're dead.
Just wait until they make all the IRS agents those guys. So that we got the Terminator coming blocking down your door, you know. Come with me if you want to pay your taxes. Dude, I'm telling you.
I have armor-piercing rounds. I'm not worried about them.
Yeah, but it's not the first one that comes to the door. It's the 37th. Like,
I have way more armor-piercing rounds than they have bots.
Yeah. But it's, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's definitely getting out of control. It is.
But like I also posted on our Discord the clip from that show about the little killer drone. That was like, it fit in the palm of your hand. It was from 7 years ago. Yeah. That's the kind of bullshit they're going to be making at that factory because you know what? We have the technology now. I sound like an absolute psychotic crazy person when I say this, but it's all there. It is literally all right there on a silver fucking platter. And it's just, let's make these connections and we're dead.
Well, we're going to have a very interesting
Gibbs,
future.
I do not want to be right on this shit.
Well,
and
no.
I'm really kind of worried that I am. And I'm sorry that we went from talking about mega cities and Judge Dredd comics to, drones are going to kill us. But that's just kind of how my brain works sometimes.
It goes in the fact that, so this is one of the reasons why I brought this up originally, was these mega cities have a very dystopic kind of background to them. And what I'm getting at is the other half of the conversation when it comes to great. So you will get, if let's just say everything planned out, you will get a city that you can walk everywhere, an inexpensive apartment. You don't have to own things like a car. You don't own the apartment. You just rent it, or you're part of a co-op or whatever. The idea being is the good news in that city is that you have everything that the government and or the planners think you need. But is it everything you want? That's the other half of the argument, is that they are building a city for what they think you might want or need. And my question is, are you okay, as a listener or viewer, are you okay with giving that up to the government and just saying, hey, design my city, do it, make it pre-planned and everything, and whatever I get's whatever I get? Because the other problem with these cities is when you're talking about surveillance, you're talking about freedom of movement. If you look at what's been happening in England for the last 10 or 15 years, did you guys know that there is basically a fine to go drive in and out of London? It's basically like an emissions kind of fine, where the idea is that you have to pay an emissions tax to get in and out of the city.
Gross.
And they have speed cameras everywhere. So they will even track where you're going, let you know, hey, we saw you were here, this and there. They will give you fines, even if you're going just a couple of miles an hour, a couple kilometers an hour over the speed limit. But it's constant surveillance everywhere you go, to the point to where people that even say things that are not necessarily bad, but maybe controversial, have been arrested. The issue I wanted to bring up is with these cities, while there are many chances to make the lives easier for people, you are also removing many of your freedoms in this situation, because every single building, every single part of the infrastructure, every vehicle is already pre-planned. So if you want anything outside of that norm, you basically don't have an option. You basically can't. Being able to get out of that city will be prohibitively expensive. That's the other flip side of this, is what happens if you want to travel, or if you want to go around, or if you want to buy some land somewhere or own something. There is the potential, if done correctly, it can give you more freedoms and more options. Unfortunately, as we see with any of the mega cities in the US, every single one of them, due to your safety, to make your day better, they restrict your freedoms every single time. So it is something to keep in mind as to, while I'd like the idea of a more efficient city, something that is planned better, much better public transportation, even maybe better policing, security, fire, building standards, everything, you are going to have to give up, I think, with the way that they're talking about it, some of your freedoms. Things like possibly being able to choose where you get your food from, for example, or being able to choose what you do for work, because the government might be picking out what you do. The reason why I bring this up is, for example, the new mayor of New York City that got elected. He wants to bring government-run markets in, government-run grocery stores. This is part of the concern, is that once you start going down a little bit down this path of things being government-run, it just trickles down more and more. So if we did this combination of this pre-planning with a laissez-faire capitalist style, but with some pretty strict restrictions in some areas, there's a way of making it work. But it seems like every single time you try to do something like this, they push the boundary, they push it farther, and then it really, really becomes an issue to where your freedoms are limited. If you look at what's happening in places like London, for example, watch some videos, watch some interviews, it's amazing how different it's looked from 15 years ago in terms of their rights, their freedoms, and what the population demographics are. So just keep that in mind. I just want to bring that up because we already have some case studies kind of on how this has gone.
Yeah.
So
I have some thoughts on the London situation and the mayor of New York and some other things, but I'll keep those to myself for right now. I'm on enough lists.
So, yeah, I think back to the original conversation, what started all this is I think you and I could both agree there have been natural disasters or disasters that have been created to clear certain areas so that these areas can eventually be rebuilt.
Tennessee Valley Authority.
Yeah.
They flooded out a whole region to build a dam for a power plant. Look up the Tennessee Valley Authority. Do some reading. That's a great one to look into. Now, yes, they did that with permission from most of the residents, but not everybody wanted to sell.
No, but if you don't get permission, oh well, there's something called eminent domain. They'll just take your shit.
Yep.
Just like if anyone ever wants to get really pissed off, look up civil asset forfeiture.
Oh,
look
yeah.
up that one.
That's a fun one.
Oh, yeah. So the government loves taking your shit. Even when
Trample my rights, daddy. Oh.
But so yeah, I think with the cities movement, there is something to be said with making cities more efficient and changing out some things. My question to you was going to be, I know you kind of touched upon this a little bit. What if we just, how should I say this? Became dwarves and just dug into the mountain, just dug underground,
Digging a hole.
Because when you think about it, it's
living underground.
It's way more thermally efficient.
It would be. The issue is we lose a lot of our humanity if we go underground. There was an experiment done. I cannot think of when, but I want to say back in like the 70s or 80s.
It doesn't have to be all day.
Oh, you just want to like live or sleep underground.
So what I'm getting at is, hear me out on this one. You build all the infrastructure underground, but to get to it, you have all these parks and beautiful areas and different things. So that way, when you want to walk from work to home or vice versa, want to hang out, you still have all of nature. It basically looks like farmland on top of it.
So like the secret city under LA.
Yes, but instead of it being LA, it's farmland. It's like nice greenery, and you have parks, and you maybe even have some homes if some people wanted like some like suburb kind of looking things on top.
Okay, so suburbia on top.
Yeah.
Industrial hellscape underneath. I like that.
Exactly.
I like that. Yes.
But it doesn't have to be a hellscape. Like, it can be nice.
I mean, you're putting it underground. You might as well just feed the beast. Go for it.
I feel like you almost want it to be
full
that
throttle.
Way.
Let's do it.
You just want this hedonistic
ultra hellscape.
You just
dystopia. Fucking do it.
Let's do it. But that being said,
send it.
But that being said, I get what you mean though. But I feel like there is a way where we could build into the side of mountains even, or side of hills. There's got to be a way of, even if we just did like apartment complexes that were built into a pre-existing hill that has like 40 or 80 units or something like that, where at least you can have little windows coming out on the sides, but that way it's also, at that point, it's basically tornado proof. Granted, yes, you have to worry about flooding or something like that, but there's pros and cons.
Earthquakes, volcanoes.
That's the earthquake part is the
asteroids.
One thing. Motherfucker.
2024 YR4, we're all dead. Look that one up.
It's 2025. We're already through 2024, so it doesn't count.
Yeah. We might have to do an episode on the potential impacts of 2024 YR4.
Oh, potential. Yeah, I think we spoke a little bit about that.
No, because this one was not found until yeah. This is scary. It's not going to hit us. It's not going to hit us. We've at least confirmed that. No, it's going to hit the fucking moon.
What?
Yeah, that's the current track.
Wait a minute. How is this not? What? How have you not?
Yeah.
How am I just now hearing about this? How big's the asteroid?
Yeah, kind of, not small.
All right. Well, here's the thing. Not small to an ant is different. Not small to an elephant. So like, do you are you talking like the size of a bus, or are you talking like the size of Manhattan? Like where are you going with this?
53 to 67 meters.
Oh, okay.
But if it hits the moon, that's enough or big enough to cause significant damage to the moon, which could then shotgun
Wait a minute.
debris from the moon.
How fast is
to
this
Earth.
fucker traveling? Good God. If something like 150 foot round can do that much damage? Also, Jesus Christ, if it does hit the moon. Oh, great. So now we're just going to be pelted like fucking shotgun pellets. I swear to God, if I finally get my life in order and get my house paid off and everything else like that, just to get wiped out by the moon, I'm gonna build a fucking killdozer. I'm gonna lose my shit. I'm gonna be the angriest motherfucker alive.
Yeah. 2032 is the suspected date.
So what I'm hearing is I got like 6 years to somehow asteroid proof my house. Yes. So my fund for traveling on vacations actually become a cannon fund.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a lot of German 88s with some flak rounds, let me tell you. That's I'd be out there looking like a fat German on World War II. Just
looks like it could be expected to impact anywhere between 37,000 and 60,000 kilometers an hour.
Oh.
So, got a little bit of ass on it.
I was going to say, I believe the scientific notation on that is hauling ass. That is moving. Have you ever thought about pulling like a, just like shooting a nuke at it or something, so at least it breaks up before it hits the moon?
Yeah. They might try something like that because we have enough warning, but I don't know.
God.
Yeah. This episode has gone everywhere.
That's how it usually goes, though.
So
that's the fun of it.
Final thoughts on living in a mega city building like an old gutted Amazon warehouse that's been rebuilt to have your work site where you live. What do you think? Yay or nay?
It depends on how it's done. It could be great.
I honestly think that's like the general consensus for most things. It really just depends on how it's done.
I feel like there's a way that we have to leverage tax incentives in order to force companies to do it the right way. But I feel like most people in cities are so focused on making taxes even higher that they're going to basically force people to be indentured servants to that company and then be forced to live there. And it's basically going to be like company run, like slumlords is where I feel like this is going to go.
And slumlords and high crime are like, and drug, like, high drug use, high prostitution, everything. Those are like the biggest concerns for those type of dwelling layouts, residency layouts. You have to have a high presence of some kind of community policing. So that's something to keep in mind when you're designing these kinds of things.
It's going to just...
But hey, with AI and bots everywhere, I mean... Maybe we don't have to worry about it.
I can tell you right now, it's going to become the case of it's just going to be a massive camera network with AI listening and watching all the time in public areas. That way AI will report crimes as they're happening. Or even when someone's yelling.
And just dispatch the judges everywhere with their sidearms.
That's the only thing that concerns me is something I was thinking about too is what if, because all these buildings and lands are private, what if it's privately run security?
Private security.
Like imagine, let's just say theoretically you live in a major city, you work at Amazon location 10 where the warehouse is below you, and then on the middle floor are the commercial offices that Amazon feeds into, and then you live on top. What happens if you're like, hey, my neighbor 3 doors down like sexually harassed me? Does Amazon send out the fucking Kill Dredd 9000 to go interrogate the neighbor? Like how does this work? Will they fight to be able to have their own jurisdictions?
They might. And I mean, honestly, if you've got a building that has a population of like 5,000, it might be required.
So this is my other part of my thing is like, is it going to become to where like these mega buildings are going to be basically their own little towns that basically function independently? Which actually
they would almost have to be.
Which in a way could be good if they had their own governmental structure and their own things and they just all kind of work together.
Yeah.
But
until they devolve and turn into gang-run buildings.
this is the other problem is absolutely until you get the one guy in there that owns all the guns. It's like, oh, thanks for hoarding all these supplies for me. I appreciate it. You did the hard work for me. I will make sure to kill you quickly. Like
this could all go very right or very wrong very quickly.
All I can say is just every one of those buildings would end just up being underground strip clubs and drug dens. That's all it would be.
Hell yes. That's a great place to be on a Friday night.
It's literally just going to be the cities that are owned by Amazon, Costco, Target, and Walmart, and just going to have those 4 competing factions. Will there eventually be faction warfare? Like maybe. Target tries to take over this district.
And then eventually every restaurant becomes Taco Bell, like in Demolition Man.
Jesus. I don't know how Taco Bell would win.
Be well.
Honestly, it would have to be McDonald's because they have the highest.
Well, yeah, but Taco Bell didn't require meat. They have vegetarian options.
Oh, so
that's why Taco Bell won.
Wow, I didn't think about that. I haven't seen Demolition Man in a while.
Yeah, worth a watch.
As time goes on, it's becoming more and more relevant.
Scary. Demolition Man, Idiocracy,
Fahrenheit 451. Read the book.
Fahrenheit.
That is the one that would make you the most depressed. By the way, I'm just letting people know. If you're a thinker, you are not going to hate. You are not going to like yourself after reading that book.
Yeah,
but worth a read. Don't watch the movie. The movie's not great. Don't watch that. But the book is good.
Yeah. If you're not a fan of reading, at least do the audiobook.
I haven't tried the audiobook with it. I'll have to look that up. I got to get into that more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's Cities of the Future for us.
Any thoughts that we missed?
It could be horrible. It could be awesome. It could be just another utopian dream that falls into disarray and cannibalistic paradise,
Jesus Christ. So here's what you need to...
Society 25, I think it was. Or Universe 25 or something. There's an experiment that was done with rats.
Yep.
It was set up to where the rats were given everything they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a utopian society for the rats. And they just laid around. They just had sex all day and they just lived their lives and had fun. And it devolved into utter cannibalistic chaos.
Yep.
And it was horrifying. And they didn't just do this once. They did it over and over and over. And it was the same exact result every single time.
As soon as there was no purpose.
I gotta find that.
And there was nothing to strive for and there was no purpose. There was no meaning.
Chaos finds a way.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something to kind of keep in mind with this. But yeah, I think we hit all the points that we wanted to hit for this.
So I guess my final word would be if you're near a local major city, start looking at some of the policies being proposed with things like taxing people to get in and out of your city, trying to remove vehicles or private transportation, starting to force people to use public transportation only. Even things like not allowing certain people to be able to buy land or certain companies not be able to do certain things. This is something to where it's starting to affect many of the major cities in small ways, but it's starting to become very public. So a lot of things that we're talking about now are going to be very, 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 mainstream pretty soon. I'm already seeing it. Just like New York City, they instituted a policy that you have to pay to get into New York City. To
fuck that.
Yep. That's what everyone said.
Yep. So.
Gotta love congestion pricing. It's great.
Surge pricing, but it's for travel.
Oh God, that nothing. Whoever thought about surge pricing, I'll show you a surge price. This one's for free. Let me tell you, oh man. Whoever thought about that? Yeah. Jesus Christ. Whoever's the asshole that thought about surge pricing and then when a hurricane comes and water's going to be $5,000 for a bottle,
Yeah, I've got a special discount for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These hands identify as unisex. I'm just no way.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm sure we'll talk about that when that becomes a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. But yeah, is there anything that we really missed on this one? Is there any
No.
No?
We hit all the points, and share the episodes with your friends. Want to see some more engagement, want to see some more listens. We're hitting some really weird numbers. So I'm trying to see what's going on. If I have to start broadcasting while in a pool of mayonnaise and a Speedo, I will. So I want to try to get some more numbers so that I don't have to do that.
You'd end up smelling like mayonnaise for weeks.
I don't care. I'll do that for the show.
That is my own form of hell, by the way. I don't like mayonnaise. So just the thought of randomly getting a whiff of mayonnaise throughout the day and you can't figure out where it's from. Oh, like I kill this. I can't even say that. I can't even say that. I can't. I would cease to exist. Is the yes. Diplomatic way I can say that.
Okay, you know what? I'll compromise. I'll start with whipped cream.
Okay.
I will wear a Speedo and do a little pool of whipped cream.
But you get the
from like right back here.
But you get the pasties with the tassels
if I have
on
to.
them, though. You get the tassel pasties, you know.
I will.
Put on a little show, you know.
If I have to do that to drive some viewership for the show, I will do that. But then I expect you to do something as equally crazy and unhinged. So we need to start driving some viewership and some downloads.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, Carly, tell him. Tell him, Carly.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
You hear her?
Yup. I'd have to find out something crazy to do. You know?
Yeah. Yes, Gibbs shaves his head.
You know?
I think that's a good suggestion.
You know, 30's been hitting me hard this year, and that did not help my self-confidence. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. I know the hairline's receding. I get it. It's okay. Maybe I'll I don't know. I'll find a way.
Yeah.
You know what I could do? I could do an entire episode. I'll paint myself green and talk like Kermit the Frog. That'd be funny. What do we have here in these major cities? We can have some fun with that.
Oh,
see, no,
God.
I do have to address chat. They just said embrace the receding hairline. My thought is I will just, if anybody's ever watched Dragon Ball Z, I will eventually go full Vegeta and just have like the receding hairline that goes all the way back. With the point, anybody that knows Dragon Ball Z, just look up Vegeta and you'll see.
Or just pull off the Picard look.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
You know.
Picard was like small and French. He can do the bald. My problem is I'm a fat American. I'm just gonna look like a thumb with two thumbs. It's not gonna work. It's just I'm a hairy thumb with two thumbs. It's gonna look fucking weird. Like I don't know. I gotta figure out what I'm. That's the problem. Is I'm gonna lose the hair up there. I gotta figure out more what I'm gonna do down here. It's gotta work. You know.
Oh. I mean, okay, Butterbean with a beard I could possibly see.
That's also insulting. Like I appreciate.
Hey, Butterbean's a badass though. Or he was.
Yeah, it was a good term with that. Oh man. So no, I'll
geriatric Butterbean versus geriatric Tyson.
Oh Jesus. God damn.
But all right, well, I think we can go ahead and cut the show. We hit all the points.
Yes.
Share the episodes. Try to get your friends involved. We do love you guys. We appreciate your hanging out with us, and hopefully we got some good stuff coming down the pipe. That's not just warm and sticky.
Wrong show.
Well, maybe for some people it's the right show.
That's supposed to be behind the paywall. You can't give that to them for free.
Well, I got to tease them a little bit.
All right, fair enough.
Tease it in there a little
that's
bit.
Fine. Fair enough.
So, all right. Well, we love you guys. Thanks for hanging out. And we'll see y'all next time.